Emily, I'm so happy that you're here today to talk to me and to all the listeners because you are you're out there and you're doing great things. And we're gonna start with you just telling us about the Matriots.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to be part of this conversation and to be amongst the folks who you've interviewed amazing people. I'm not entirely sure how I am here, but
I'll stop.
I'm excited to tell you what it is that we work on. So the Matriots is an organization that works to engage women in all aspects of Ohio political life. And we started back in 2017. It was six women with an idea, right? And what is fantastic about it is that all you need is an idea and some energy, and you can kind of toss the network wide. So in 2017, these women called all their friends together. They went to the Women's March in Washington, D.C., and they came back and figured out one of the biggest hurdles for women in Ohio politics is money. So they started essentially a giving circle to political candidates who are women who are running for local all the way up through statewide office here in the state of Ohio. And that blossomed and grew. And what we realized over time is that there aren't enough women running for office. If we wanted to get to 51% women in elected office, which is essentially parity here in the state of Ohio, that we would need way more women running for office. So they started another nonprofit that works to get women engaged in the political process, understanding what you could run for, connected to resources that you need to run. And then we also advocate for women-friendly policies. So we endorse, encourage, and advocate women who all along the political spectrum in Ohio. And it's a lot of fun. I get to engage with not only women who are candidates and excited about how they could change Ohio, what they could do to help Ohio families move forward, but also with women who just are looking to find the right place for their own political activism or their own engagement. And it's really, I think probably some of the most fun is to talk to a woman who has never been empowered to speak about politics and help her kind of start to find that voice and understand that there's so many ways that we have to engage in representation and help her start to see those pathways. It's really a fascinating job, and I've been doing it since the organization started in 2017. They worked with their first class of candidates in 2018, and I joined as the chief executive officer in 2021. So I've
And
been doing
I'm
this.
going to really encourage people to look at the website. I will put that in the notes to this podcast.
Thank
But
you.
it is quite remarkable, and I hopped on early
You
because
did.
I too was kind of looking around and be like, hey, wait a minute, why aren't there more women running? And being 51% of the population, which is kind of a bit where that number comes from,
Hmm.
um, there should be more women's voices at the table because a lot of the things that occur, need a female perspective on it because they're just, especially super niche. But we just do need to have more women at the table. And I loved too that they added that wing on where because I know a bit of uh, um, a barrier for women is that they don't even know where to start.
Right.
And the fact that it was like, you know what, we got you. We're going to really help you. We're going to teach you how to raise money. We're going to teach you how to get out there and basically, speak up for what you believe. And it's been fantastic because you guys have definitely moved the needle a lot since you've started too.
We have. When we first started, there was about 24% women in the Ohio State House. So that's the Ohio legislature. It's
Hmm.
the arm of our government that is specifically focused on Ohio. It's not the federal government, it's Ohio government. 24% of those seats were held by women in the Ohio Senate and in the Ohio House. Today, we are now at 34%. We'll start 2025 with 34% of the Senate and the House combined being women. And so moving a needle 10% in 8 years is fantastic. We have significant work to do, but we know we read about the tipping point, all those
Hmm.
kinds of things. And we have at least reached the tipping point. We just need more candidates in the pipeline. And what we're also seeing, the Matriots does research on like hyper local research, which is challenging to do in Ohio. While we're seeing that kind of movement at the state house, we need more women in executive offices as well. Right now, Ohio has 0 women in statewide executive office. So if you think of the gubernatorial office, the governor's office, lieutenant
Right.
governor, auditor of state, secretary of state. So we'll want to think about those kinds of executive roles, mayors, county commissioners, lots of work to do around executive office and kind of even more locally. So we're running hard at this question, and while on the national scene, we had a woman who ran for president. She was unsuccessful in that presidential race, but she garnered 48% of the vote, of the popular vote in the
Right.
United States. That's wild and huge, and is also hopefully influential to women to think about on both sides of the aisle. What could I do if I were to run for office and open those
Exactly,
doors?
exactly. And it's just a matter of the more diversity you have in a conversation, the better it
Mhm.
is for everyone. And I think somewhere along the way, people thought, well, it's either my way or the highway. But if you just think about anybody that you know that gets their way all the time, they're kind of an annoying person.
Is that your favorite? Yeah.
But like, oh, that person is so spoiled. Um,
Mhm.
or you always get, or if you've been in a relationship where you're always like, we always go to the places that you want to eat, and you never will listen to
Mhm.
where I want to go. It's very much like that. And then, hey, you know what? Let's try this restaurant that you like. And oh my God, now my world has opened a little bit. I mean, it's a silly example, but it's kind of the same thing where it's like
Mhm.
if you don't have that perspective, you might have never even thought of it. And some of the best ideas, I think, come from when there is just some person who's invited to the table that just brings an idea. It's like, oh, that's good. I would have
Yeah.
never thought about that because I just know what I know. I guess is maybe
Yep.
also a part of it too. People kind of come in and if we're all like thinkers, we only know what we know, but it's such an amazing world when we get, a little more flavor added to things.
It's so true. And women are the top consumers in the United States. We buy the most stuff,
Yes.
right? So we're out there shopping, we're comparing prices, we're understanding what products are available, what's not available. We're still honestly doing a lot of the work at home, the unpaid work at home and the unpaid work at work. So we're seeing what opportunities there are there, and we're understanding what needs there are for our families. We perform and engage most of the home health care and home health
Hmm.
purchases. So all these things are spaces where we do childcare, most of the childcare for families. And so if women are doing most of these types of tasks, they're also understanding the economies around it the most. They're also really figuring out what families need. Those types of things need to go into our policies and into
Yes.
our legislation, not exclusively. I'm not saying I need 100% women, but just reflective of those voices,
Yes.
so that we can start to move our state legislature into policies that really work for everybody in the state of Ohio, not just the
Exactly. And
slice.
I really hope that women kind of see that power that they have, that opinion that they have, that is so important, and realize, all you have to do is just get involved. And it's at any level too. Sometimes it's just showing up to a town meeting or the
Mhm,
school board meeting and just saying, did anybody think about this? Or,
mhm.
I've been doing drop off for a long time and this is this is what's here's a better way of doing it. I
Yeah.
mean, it can be super, super simple stuff, and but you know a lot of things as a woman and as a mother
Mhm.
and as a wife or spouse or partner, whatever. So, you know, people kind of need your help too. I think in most cases, I will say in most cases, people are willing to hear um, where people's concerns are. Whether or not they can make it happen or make it everybody agree across the board, that I don't know. But if they don't know there's a problem, if they don't know the people that are kind of living the situation, they're just going to go with what they know. And that's
Right.
why it's super important to, like, no matter what it is, just get out there, just say something. And that might start the next fire. That might start the next Matriots
Yep.
or something like that, where it's just basically a couple of people sitting around going, well, wait a minute. we, this, this could be a
Why
lot
does it work
better.
this way? It doesn't have to be this way.
Let's think about this. We could totally do
Mhm,
something. Yeah, and that's
mhm.
that's that's what the beauty of it. I think is, like, again, it just came from an idea. It has taken fire because there are a lot of people like minded thinking on this, and it works. I mean, it's just something that the world needs, and I'm just so excited that you're here to share that because, as you know, the Matrix is very near
Mhm.
and dear to me too because it's something that I believe in as well.
You have been a fantastic supporter of our work since almost the beginning, since the very first
Yeah.
class of founders. And so longer than I have been.
I was like,
And,
"You're doing what? Okay, take my money."
yeah, count me in. I'm here for that. Yeah. Please, and another. And I think that we exist all across the state. So we have folks who engage with us here, but Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton, Youngstown, Canton, I mean, all across the state, 45 counties, and counting. And we also have the amazing opportunity to partner with lots of other organizations that are in the women's ecosystem of politics, thinking about how do we help women all along the way. And one of the things I get a lot of questions about is, do I have to run for office? And the answer is no, right? You can be engaged in the political process by raising your voice, like you just mentioned, Catherine, or by supporting a candidate who's running for office, or by filing testimony, or by talking with your neighbors about why it's important that we not stick our head in the sand and ignore civic conversation, that we start to understand how all of our systems work and why that's important. Even just having a dinner around your table and allowing a
Mhm.
space for people to talk about how they feel in their community is a way of civic engagement.
Exactly.
And we want to just empower women to, whether you're going to run for office or you're going to do anything along the lines of civic engagement. I think it's really important that we continue to do that, even when it feels like you're not making a difference individually, because you actually are, right? The collective voice is much louder than you think it is. And oftentimes in politics, there's a pressure that comes in that is like, you don't have to worry about that, or you don't have to talk about
Mhm.
that. We've got that handled. That's always the time. Like, if I tell my kids that, like, don't you worry, I've got that handled. There are about 52 questions that come up, like, well, but also, are you sure you understand? Are you sure you know what I really want? Did you take into consideration?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
that happens with just my kids, like, we should be cautious if somebody tells us in politics, like, don't worry about that, I've got it handled. Tell me exactly how you're going to handle that, and
Yeah.
how is my voice being
Yeah,
being
and also just kind of passing it to the next generation, like you were talking about too, is kind of getting them involved as well. Because just as again, I love analogies. So before you kick your child out of the house, make sure they can make at least a ramen or a mac and cheese. Know
so
how to do their
true.
laundry. Don't let them
Mhm.
be completely unprepared. You have to educate them to other things because mom is not going to take care of everything forever.
Mm-mm.
The earlier generations are not going to take care of everything. Start getting
Mm-mm.
involved now so you can do things on your own, speak up on your own, get involved. Because even as you're an up and comer, your opinion does matter. I mean, more so than ever because
Mhm.
as we have seen, many times over, laws get implemented and you got to live with those for a while until somebody else could come in
Yes.
and make a change. So yeah, definitely even as at a young age, know that you can, just be educated, get ready to vote. You can help canvas. You can do a lot of
Mhm.
things too. But I think that's also a gift that you can give your children too, is just getting them, ready for the world too, and not thinking that, everything's taken care of because, honestly it isn't. We're all just making this up as we go.
Or that it
So
doesn't involve them. Yeah, we're all making it up. That it doesn't involve them, or that there's nothing that they can do to change it. I think
exactly,
those
exactly.
three things lead us to not participate. And when we don't participate, we have really um, no impact on the outcome. And
And
that's the real challenging part. So long as there is, I know that the friction is hard for a lot of people. There is in
oh
politics,
yes, yes.
there is friction. There's conflict, and a lot of people are kind of anti-conflict. But one of the things about leaning into that friction a little bit is that we're allowing it to move slowly towards a place of progress.
Hmm.
Because without the friction, then we'll just keep going,
Yeah.
backwards.
And when it comes to like differing opinions and things like that, the way that I try and handle that, and this just works for me, so I'm going to share it, is that I just really try to understand where that person's coming from. Like, where did
Mhm.
you get your information? Why do you feel that way? Because I do want to understand, because I do think for the most part, people do want what's best for
Mhm.
the world.
Mhm.
So what makes you think that that's the best thing, and just kind of dig into, and you could still not agree. You're thinking like, oh, that's the
Oh yeah.
craziest thing I've ever heard. But, but it
I
helps,
call
it
it my
helps what,
tinfoil hat. Yeah.
it helps when
Gotta be careful with it.
you at least understand, like, okay, well, then now I know how to respond to that, and maybe we
Mhm.
can have a discussion. So,
Well,
because
and
this
it
is what
might
I
also
believe, and this is why I think this is right, and
yes.
hopefully there's a middle ground. And usually there is, but it's always like a different approach that it always seems, and even sometimes from both sides, just a little off skew a little bit. It's like, no, we can.
Mhm.
There's a middle ground here somewhere, and let's just see how we can kind of get to that. But although one thing I wanted to mention too, because we were talking about with kids, is that anybody who has a teenager knows that they have opinions. So we can put that to good work.
Yes. Change it. Change the energy from a negative one to a positive one. Yeah,
Exactly. You want to do something about that, honey? Here's
that
what we're gonna do.
energy. Let me channel it. Let's not leave that energy just kind of in the world, in the atmosphere. Let's really try to funnel it towards good, or it might go towards negativity.
That
Oh
teenage
man.
power is a force. So yeah,
Ooh,
let's
it's
retarget
work.
that for good for sure.
It's amazing work. And it shows me that they will be good on the other side. It just
Yes.
requires
Well,
um
there's nothing cooler than when you can see your child really fight for something they believe in. And that is
mhm.
anything from like the dinner choice or whatever. It's just like, I really, Mom, I don't like that. All right, well, let's talk about it. If you're going to stand your ground on that, then guess what? We're going to teach you how to make mac and cheese. So we
Right.
brought it full circle.
We did. We did. My colleague and I, Fizz White at the Matriots, and I wrote an opinion piece for the Columbus Dispatch not too long ago, right after the election. And the one that was published was something about this is the death knell to democracy, 200 and
Oh,
X number of years. We have moved past what democracy looks like, and we shall say goodbye. And so what Fizz and I wrote was that democracy has only existed in the United States since the 1960s, since the Civil Rights Act and the
fair
Voting
statement.
Rights
Yeah.
Act.
Yeah.
And so therefore, our democracy specifically is a messy teenager. Like she needs patience, she needs guidance. There is friction, there are hard times, but how can we work together to not think, okay, we're putting this to rest and that's the end of democracy. Instead, that we're at a place of inflection where we really get ready to launch a democracy
Yeah.
as we're launching kind of a messy teenager. And what we do now really matters to making sure that it grows up to be a fully fledged, mature thing
I love
when
that
it's ready to
so
leave home.
much. That's
Um,
perfect. I love that so
mhm.
much.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so
it
great.
helps. It helps.
Again, we just went full circle with that.
Yeah.
But speaking about teenagers and things like that, I know,
Mhm.
Emily, you were a young child at one time, as we all
Mhm.
were. And I'm super curious as to what you did as a child that was fun and maybe slightly irresponsible, or, when you woke up in the morning, what did you really enjoy doing? It being creative or just adventurous or whatever?
I tried lots of different things. I tried ballet. I was terrible at it. I always was the girl in the back, like looking at other girls who were doing it in the front row, and that does not make for a great dancer when you're one step behind everybody else. Um, I tried art like you. I tried painting and still life. Mine looked not good. So they counseled that that was not my strength. And where I actually found a deep love was in music. So I started in fourth grade on the viola.
Oh, wow.
And I know on the viola. The viola is kind of a under noticed instrument. You've got the violins, they're always playing the melody, they're very
Hmm.
exciting, they're always at the top, everybody pays a lot of attention to the violins. Got the cellos, they always are like sad, or they're expressive, or they're emotional, whatever, like they get a lot of energy. The bass is huge, so just carrying it around is really attractive. But like the viola was kind of left out, so I went towards the viola in the fourth grade, and I played it for about 6 months, but they made me cut my fingernails. And I don't even really have great fingernails, but I
Hmm.
really did not like that they made you cut your fingernails to push down on the strings. So in my fifth grade year, I asked for a different instrument and I said, I want no buttons, no valves, no strings, no keys. And they gave me a trombone. They were like, you have excluded every other instrument. I was like, I want to keep my fingernails. And they handed me a trombone at the band tryout night or whatever in fifth grade. And and they sat me down and I played a B flat concert scale, which requires multiple changes of what's called your embouchure, your mouth.
Hmm.
Um, and I loved it. And I was really good at it. And so I spent my childhood from fifth grade through really into college playing the trombone all of the time. I spent a lot of time in organized bands. So I would be part of the band program, but then I also picked up other instruments and played those in other bands. So I was in like the symphonic band, but also the concert band. I did the jazz band. I did after school bands, which were like brass bands. I was a music tutor, a private lessons instructor for other kids. I took my own private lessons. I was in the marching band. So I did band all of the time. And the one of the really interesting things that I look back on now is that because I was a trombonist and because I was actually a pretty good trombonist, I was always around men. It was
Oh,
like
yeah.
me and a bunch of men.
Yep.
And I was oftentimes in a lot of these bands the only person of color, sometimes one of two. But very rarely were there very many women at all in a brass band.
I was going to ask you that because
Handful.
can't think of any other. I don't think I've ever seen a woman play a trombone.
Well, there are lots. We hang out where we are like a little tight knit group. When I joined OSU's marching band, so when I
Oh,
tried out in
yeah.
college for OSU's marching band, there were 6 women in my row of
Oh
14,
my God, that had to be so
which was
awesome.
crazy. It was the most women I'd ever seen um, play the trombone. But oftentimes, yeah, you're by yourself in a low brass section. There tubas, baritones, trombones. Not a lot of women play those instruments, but the women who do are fierce and independent and driven and creative. And usually those sections are also a little kind of wild's not the right word, but a little like precocious.
Okay. I think
And
you are
so
describing yourself perfectly right now, but go ahead, go on.
right, so I like built that character because you really, I mean, you're gonna sit around if you played. I played in the symphony, the Columbus Youth Symphony Orchestra. And if you're going to play trombone in the Youth Symphony Orchestra, you're going to sit there, any orchestra, you're going to sit there for 90% of the music, counting, and then big note. You're going to have to come in on big note, real loud, after counting for a while. So you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
be like independent and ready for big note. Um, because that's what you're going to get. And they're going to be looking to you. And if you miss it, then the whole
Oh my
thing has
God,
led up
yeah.
to real flop.
Well, I'm so impressed. I did not know you did symphony too. I just knew that you were a band kid, and definitely of the highest echelons, and that you were a member of the best damn band in the land at
Mhm.
OSU. So that alone speaks to your excellence. But the fact that you did symphony too, that is super impressive.
It's symphony. But symphony for trombone, it's a fascinating, it's very different method of playing because you don't want to cover the delicate instruments like an oboe and a piccolo and a violin. It takes, 60 violins to one trombone. Like I will cover them up very quickly. So there's a much more delicate balance in a symphony than there was in a marching band where you want to hear the sound projected to the top of the stadium.
Oh
You're going
yeah,
to be
that's what people pay
loud.
for, is that loud, those horns,
Yes,
the tubas, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
exactly. They want loud.
Hmm.
And so you do the kind of high school marching band I did was a very different style of marching and technique than we did in the Ohio State marching band. So you kind of learn different techniques and how to do the instrumentation differently. I thought I was going to be a music educator. I thought I was going to teach music to the children. And then in college, I got in front of the children and I was like, y'all are great. Um, but not
However,
for me. Yeah, not for me. My three are fabulous because they know my rules and they follow what I need and like we all work together. But other people's kids, OPKs, um, were not my jam.
that's hilarious.
So
That's
uh,
hilarious. So you did take a different path, which
mhm.
was,
Well, first it was actually business. So I was on full scholarship to go to Ohio State for trombone. And I was going to be a music educator. And about halfway through my college career, 2.5 years or so, I was like, I just don't. They'd put me in the classroom. I'd tried the high school, I'd tried the middle school, I'd tried elementary school, and I couldn't find, I thought it was just I wasn't fitting with that group of kids.
Hmm.
And what I realized is that it just wasn't where I saw myself spending the next part of my life, the next era of my life. Um, so I had the right credits to kind of switch over and go to business. And I thought that would be really interesting to try to do marketing. So I was a marketing major in the College of Business at Ohio State. And that was fascinating. And then I met, for the first time in my life, I met a lawyer. I met a judge, a fantastic judge. His name is Robert Duncan.
Hmm.
And Bob Duncan was a judge here in the state of Ohio. He then became so he was a local judge. He became a Supreme Court justice for the state of Ohio. He became a federal judge. He was confirmed onto the federal bench in the state of Ohio, and he is responsible for desegregating the Columbus city schools in the 1970s.
So cool.
He's amazing, and I was appointed to the Ohio State Board of Trustees as the undergraduate student trustee by the governor. And that's how I met Judge Duncan. He was a member of the Board of Trustees. There were 9 of them at the time. Um, and he just really, like so many people I've found now, he just took me under his wing. He explained what the law looked like, why it was important to have diverse voices in the law, why he thought I would make a good lawyer. And he and a few other lawyers really mentored me and said, you should go to law school. And it had never even occurred to me that that would be something that I would want to do or want to be good at. And he really helped me see a pathway forward in the law. And so that's actually what I did for a long time. I went to law school at Northwestern in Chicago, with the hopes of actually coming back at some point in time to Ohio to work in the general counsel's office at a university at Ohio State if I could. And so that pathway was long and storied. But because of that mentorship from him and from the general counsels that had worked for Ohio State, that's how I really started my pathway into the law and how I eventually ended up back here in Columbus. Um, you know, it is, I met my husband in Ohio State's marching band, and when you're a woman trombonist, there are a lot of possible options. Um, because there are not a lot of women. But he was like a standout. He is a standout. He's an amazing human, but he was the solo trumpet player. So he would, out of the 226 marching members, he would like come out in the front
Uh-huh.
and play solos when there was a solo trumpet need. And like, how do you not fall in love with
That's
that?
pretty sexy.
Yeah, it's
So,
pretty cute. Yeah.
no, and that's your brother. Oh, look at that guy.
Yeah, I know. Like, and he was funny and he was cute and he didn't mind standing in front of 100,000 people on a freezing Saturday or
And
a
not make a
steamy
mistake.
Saturday.
I mean, you're out there. You
You're
cannot
out
make a
there.
mistake. I'm sure they'll forgive you, but still, you know what I mean? It's like you want to nail it when you got
Yeah.
a crowd that
Yeah.
big.
Well,
That's
and
so
he
funny. I did not realize that that's where you guys met. That's so great.
hmm hmm he's fantastic. And he's an attorney as well. So we can have good conversation about, how the law works or about, how to break down a task, or we're both problem solvers. That's kind of one of our key things that we like to do, is to take a problem apart into its component pieces, solve the things that are relevant, and leave the other things as just noise. And so he is a perfect companion for me. But it all came from that trombone that I picked up in the 5th grade.
Well, it is very clear how you ended up where you are right now, because I think everything that you've done has led up to this, even the playing of the trombone too, because like you said,
Yeah.
it got you in a group of people, like you said, that's just you have to be bold and different and a little precocious, and I think that kind of built a nice padding into then you also knowing a lot about the law, because that's all very vital things that you need to do what you do, because you do have to kind of be out there and be the trumpet for women and or the trombone for women and know
Good.
the law, because that is um important as well. And I'm going to say that also with the caveat too of women that do want to run for office, that they can get the help
Mhm.
that they need in that regard too. So don't think you have to be a lawyer in order
You
to
definitely
run,
don't.
but knowledge of the law is very important, or have people sitting right next to you that know the law, so you can,
Mhm.
do your best in pretty much any job for the most part. Um, all right, so you have a very action-packed life, but what is it that you do to unplug?
Oh,
Do
a
you get to do you get
couple.
to break that trombone out anymore, or is it just more you're on the listening side, or
I'm
what
more
what
on the
what do you
listening
do?
side. And maybe you can relate to this. I know that you picked up, you went back to a childhood passion later in life. Um, I have a really hard time playing the trombone now. I do it on occasion. About once every decade, I'll go back and march in the Alumni Association marching
Oh.
band, the marching band. Um, or I'll do, Easter service
Mm-hmm.
because you can't wake up Jesus unless you got a trombone. So like you gotta have a
It's
trombone
true
in the in the
though.
in
It's
the group. I
true.
mean, otherwise he'll keep on sleeping. So I don't play very often, but the reason is by picking up a my own childhood instrument, I am not good like I was. I was very, very good. I had a lot of opportunities. I practiced so much.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
played every day in these different bands, but then I also did my own. I stayed after school from 3 to 5 p.m. every day and practiced.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like did a little bit of homework, but practiced mostly. And so I was very good at the instrument, and had a lot of success with it. When I pick it up now, it doesn't sound like it did when I was 18.
Right.
And that is a really hard recognition, and makes it harder for me to lean into that passion. I
Mm.
would need
Yeah.
significant work on the trombone. I do enjoy playing other instruments that I am not as good at. Like, we have a cello here at home that we can pick up for fun. I don't know how to play the cello. I was never good at it, so it really is a enjoyment of the music. Um, I do a lot of reading. I love to read, not things that people, oftentimes are like, "Oh, here's a feminist manifesto that you should read." Awesome. Or here's a really deep social justice book that really, you should. I like to read interesting historical fiction.
Me
I've got
too.
a book club that I love and enjoy. I am in an essay club where I go and hear other people's essays, and I write my own essays.
I love
Um,
that.
we do a lot of hiking and a lot of travel, and I do yoga a lot. I do yoga probably 4 or 5 times a week, and that helps me. Hot yoga, so I can feel like I'm on a beach, but I'm not on here. Um, and um, and that helps me reconnect with just my energy. And when the political world is full of nonsense, which is about 366 days a year,
Yeah.
it allows for just a grounding
Yeah.
and a flow that you can take throughout the rest of your day. So those are some things that I do for fun.
I
Um,
think those are all great things that people could also pick up on, because I mean ultimately you are a creative person, and just at
mhm.
this time in your life you're expressing it in different ways, and reading, just great books, especially like fiction or historical fiction or
Mm,
stories, that are based in history and things like that. I mean, just it really does give the left side of your brain a break. And it is so important to do that. And I love the idea of yoga too, where you just feel grounded. It's very much about your feet on the ground, planted. You're making, poses that are just show how solid you are. And it's a nice way to kind of regroup your mind and your body. So yeah, I'm basically saying follow your lead, because they are all wonderful ideas. And even out hiking, taking a walk, it's
mhm,
all of that is right brain activities and creative, because you're thinking and you're looking and you're listening, and you're not in a database or problem solving or doing
mhm.
something else. It's freeing your mind up to come back and do that again. But it'll just be, we all need that break, and we might as well just accept it. so,
Absolutely. And
so if
and
you
I
do it,
often
you'll be better for it.
exactly. And I often get the question, like, you're sitting on a panel and you get this question about work-life balance, and how, you have 3 kids and you have a busy
Hmm.
life, and how do you do work-life balance? And my response is often related to yoga. It is that balancing poses in yoga are the most complicated. You spend an entire class opening and breathing and stretching in order to end your class in the most complicated pose, which is some type of balance. And I'm bad at all balances. I fall out of all of them. I usually laugh when I fall out of them. Um, and the thing about that is, if we are trying to say that we have to have work-life balance, we are trying to immediately instill the hardest thing into our lives, that you're going to fall out of. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it requires so much effort, so much focus, so much patience, and a workup to it, that you're not going to be successful at a work-life balance. So I think of it like a work-life flow, right? I
Yes.
flow
Yep.
daily. Some days I'm great at this thing over here, and I'm not so good at this other thing over here. Some days I'm an awesome employee, and my board is like, yes, girl. And my family's like, I haven't seen you. Where are
Yeah.
you? What are you
Yeah.
doing? Right. And sometimes my family just really needs me, or I need me. And I have to ask my team, can you step in a little bit on this thing because I'm really needed at home right now? And that flow perspective, that's when I bring it from one side of my brain to the other, is that I'm not going to stand here and try to balance on a pinpoint,
Mm-hmm.
because I will fall down. It's going to be so difficult. So it is instructive to me in so many ways.
I love that response, but I'm also going to say in the same breath how much I hate that question.
Yeah, right.
Because typically it's asked to women and women
Women.
only. So until men can tell us how they handle their work-life balance,
Hmm.
I will refuse to answer the question.
That's so good.
Because I am more like you. I mean, it's life.
It's
The
life.
divided between a balance. It is a flow. I'm going to flow
Hmm.
over here. Now we're getting choppy water, and then we're back to a flow. But yeah, I think the idea of just balance is ridiculous. There is no
It's
balance.
ridiculous. It's the
So
hardest thing I do all day long, is try to balance in those last 5 minutes of class. So why would I want to impose that on the rest of my life? It seems
exactly,
like I would fail all of the time.
exactly,
So, I love this idea of ensuring that you're using the opposite side of your brain to instruct the rest of your life into a space of harmony. I love it.
exactly. That's how you keep the flow.
That's how you keep the flow. How I stay nimble.
Well, Emily, this is so delightful, and we could probably go on for another hour just talking. So, if anything, we'll have to get on each other's calendars maybe in the next couple of weeks or so. But
Yay.
I appreciate you so much for being here. You are so delightful. You're such a ray of sunshine, and you are doing
Thank you.
great things. So, I appreciate you spending your time with all of us today.
Thank you for your support, and thank you for inviting me to be here. This was so much fun. It's awesome.